Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, July 13th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about Senator Marco Rubio, the Florida senator who was elected back in 2010, re-elected in 2016, now up for re-election in 2022. Now, Marco Rubio, I will say, has certainly proven to be a firm adversary of the Democratic Party, someone who rose to quick popularity back in 2016 during his presidential bid and has remained that political prominence ever since. Marco Rubio, who used to be an opponent of President Trump in the primaries, quickly became a supporter once he realized that Donald Trump would become the president of the United States and continued to support him over the past 4 years. Now that Donald Trump is out of office, Marco Rubio still considers him to be a close ally and closely ties himself to the former president. Yet despite President Trump winning the state of Florida by just 3.3% in 2020, I expect personally Marco Rubio to win by a much larger amount in 2022. This Senate race that is up for re-election for Marco Rubio is one that people somewhat expected to be competitive. Personally speaking, I never moved it out of the likely Republican characterization. I've said time and time again that I can truly see Marco Rubio winning here by double digits. But with such prominence in the state that previously was always competitive no matter what the race, that begs the question, is Marco Rubio's state safe? Is Marco Rubio in a position where he will win the state of Florida by potentially 15 points plus? And that is why we need to talk about this, because that is a real possibility. I'm not going to say that at this point in time, I think Florida is considered to be safe, but we can talk about why someone might arrive at that conclusion and how it might get there ahead of 2022. It's not too hard to see. Like I said, I can expect a double-digit victory for Marco Rubio, even against the Democrat here, Val Demings, someone who was almost Joe Biden's vice presidential pick, a United States representative, a very outspoken one, a very recognizable one, I will say, for the state of Florida and potentially amongst the insider circles within the Democratic Party. So Val Demings, a recognizable name, yet not enough to overcome this large advantage that Marco Rubio has in the state of Florida. And it dates back to recent elections. In 2016, Hillary Clinton lost in the state of Florida by just 1.2%. I mean, she lost the state. I'm not going to try to defend her or her campaign in that state, but she did do better than Joe Biden. One of the few states that shifted to the right relative to 2016 was the state of Florida. The overwhelming majority of states shifted towards the left. And the reason why Florida shifted to the right wasn't because of a reduction of white support, as maybe you might have expected amidst COVID-19 for Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but it was actually a reduction in minority support, despite this election year 2020 being a major push for the Black Lives Matter movement, a major push for racial equity. Everything that the Democratic Party tried to envision and embody in 2016 was put on the ballot again in 2020. They seem to do worse. Now, there was a region of the state in which the support that Clinton versus Biden received was a very significant reduction. And we'll talk about why Miami-Dade County will be instrumental in Marco Rubio's eventual victory in 2022 if he is on track to do so. I think currently he is, so we're going to assume as such. So Hillary Clinton won Miami-Dade County with 624,000 votes. Donald Trump received 333,000 votes, just 34% of support. Hillary Clinton received 63%. Now, keep in mind, even with this large victory for Hillary Clinton in Miami-Dade County, she lost the state by 1.2%. Despite this 30-point victory, she lost this state. Now, in the Senate election against Marco Rubio, this is, again, something that I will say, and I need to point out as another example as to Marco Rubio's political prominence. First elected back in 2010 because the independents and Democrats couldn't work together to coalesce around a candidate. Had they done that, Marco Rubio would not even be a senator today, or potentially would have ran in 2016 and maybe have lost. Charlie Crist, who was a Republican governor of the state of Florida, didn't run for re-election. Instead ran as an independent for Senate in the state of Florida, split the Democratic vote, split the independent vote. Marco Rubio was elected by a plurality. But 2016, he won by more than just a plurality. Marco Rubio won in this state by 7.7%. Now, if you don't understand Florida politics, essentially the quick rundown is on almost every single race, it is always competitive. Even if people are popular, it tends to revert back to its traditional competitive status. In 2018, Rick Scott, the incumbent governor, won in the Senate race by 0.2%. Ron DeSantis won the governor race by 0.4%. 4 years prior, the governor race was decided by less than 2 points, despite Rick Scott being popular across the state. I mean, looking at the Senate elections over time in the state of Florida, the governor elections, and a number of other statewide positions, they are almost always competitive. So when Marco Rubio won in the state of Florida by 7.7%, that was a monumental victory. It was an 8-point victory, and it wasn't easily won. Marco Rubio won a considerable amount of Hillary Clinton voters, specifically minority voters, especially in the Miami-Dade County area. Now, we all saw that Hillary Clinton won in Miami-Dade County with 63% of the vote, yet Patrick Murphy, the Democratic nominee for Senate, won just 55%, won 529,000 votes to Marco Rubio's 420,000 votes, with Marco Rubio winning 43%. So the margin, instead of it being a 29-point difference, is instead a 12-point difference in Miami-Dade County. And, as I'm pointing this out, I want you to understand Miami-Dade County was the major shift from 2016 to 2020 in the state of Florida. And I'm going to show that to you right now because it actually is, quite surprising. Quite surprising. So in 2020, looking at the presidential election, Joe Biden lost the state of Florida by 3.3%. So this was a margin in which Donald Trump doubled his 2016 margin of victory. But it was because of Miami-Dade County that left Joe Biden high and dry in this election. Yes, he won it, but guess the amount. Joe Biden won Miami-Dade County by 6.3%. Hillary Clinton won by 29%. Patrick Murphy, the failed Democratic candidate who lost by 8 points statewide, won by 12%. And Joe Biden wins by 6.3%. And the thing is, looking at the amount of votes, Joe Biden received less votes than Hillary Clinton in Miami-Dade County, despite the election year being much higher in stakes. The highest turnout we've seen in a presidential election since 1900, not the century, but since the year 1900, before the Titanic had even sank. Looking at Miami-Dade County, despite the overwhelmingly high turnout, the margin for Joe Biden decreased. And if you're wondering, no, Donald Trump's margin, vote share, did not decrease. Obviously, he moved up from 34% all the way up to 46%. And this happened because of minority voters. Donald Trump received nearly 200,000 votes more. 199,000 votes more. So nearly there. Joe Biden received a decrease of 7,000 votes relative to Hillary Clinton. So Miami-Dade County is in this position where they seemed infatuated by President Trump in a way that they had not been with Romney or McCain or even Trump in 2016. I blame this on what I say the Democratic Party cried wolf in 2016 when they said that Donald Trump would be the end of the normal way of life for minority citizens, specifically Hispanic residents in the state of Florida. That rhetoric worked in 2016. It did not work in 2020 after many of these families realized that their lives were not completely changed, that their lives and their livelihoods were not uprooted just because Donald Trump was president. And, the Democratic Party tried to employ this same exact strategy amongst every minority group, which is why Joe Biden only won the election by shifting white voters. Yes, minority turnout rising absolutely helped. That was a major thing. But the point is that had Joe Biden won the same type of numbers amongst minority voters as Hillary Clinton, some of the states probably wouldn't change, but the margins absolutely would, including the state of Florida. So now that you get a little bit of an understanding about Miami-Dade County, understand that in 2022, it is very possible that Marco Rubio wins in Miami-Dade County. This is not just speculation. The county itself saw a reduction from the presidential support by 16, 17 points relative to the presidential margin. If Biden's only winning by 6.3%, what's to say Rubio wouldn't flip Miami-Dade County? He won Miami-Dade County back in 2010, and I will say that was largely because of the party split. When you take a look at the actual results, let's see if they actually show it by county. I'm not entirely sure if they will. I do not believe they will. But the point is that in Miami-Dade County, this happened largely because of the party split. When you take a look at the color characterization, you'll see that it's in the Marco Rubio 40 to 50%, not in the 30 to 40, but the Marco Rubio in the 40 to 50% because it was a plurality victory. It was not a victory that was won by a majority. But I could certainly see that happen in 2022. Now, if Miami-Dade County goes to Marco Rubio, you're talking about a margin of victory that's already larger than his 2016 one, because it's not as if Rubio has lost support relative to 2016 across the state of Florida. In this position, Marco Rubio was in 2016. He was a failed presidential candidate who was riding the coattails, essentially, of President Trump, but then ended up outperforming him by over 6 points. For Rubio to have won in 2016 by such a large amount, despite the Democrats doing considerably better in Miami-Dade County, and, a lot more support for Hillary Clinton than there was for Joe Biden, or not a lot more, but still more support. That begs the question, will Rubio win by at least 7.7%, if not more? Yes, I think so. Absolutely. Despite Marco Rubio having an overwhelming track record for supporting President Trump, it is quite interesting to see. This amount of support that Rubio has displayed to him over the past 4 years has been very strong. Despite Florida being a swing state on almost every level, the predicted score from FiveThirtyEight based off of the state's 2016 margin of victory is that Rubio should have backed President Trump just 51.8% of the time. He backed him 88.1% of the time. Marco Rubio overwhelmingly supported President Trump and his endeavors. Many other swing state Democrats don't have such a luxury. And in fact, despite Marco Rubio supporting him in such a way, he isn't unpopular. Like I said, Marco Rubio is not in the negative amongst the Florida voters. Right now, he holds a 47, well, this is March 2021, but I'm assuming that, at this point, it hasn't really changed. We haven't seen many numbers reporting anything different. He has an approval rating of 47%, a disapproval rating of 42%. 46% of voters in Florida believe that he should be reelected. 40% say he should not. But the reason why I also want to show you this poll is because the amount of undecideds is something that certainly, I think, would help Marco Rubio. The thing about the Florida polls is that, typically speaking, they underestimate Republicans. In 2020, they predicted a Joe Biden victory by 2.5%. He lost by 3.3%. That's a reduction in support relative to the polls for Joe Biden of over 5 points, nearly 6 points in terms of the swing. It was what? A 6-point swing, 5.8%. So yeah, exactly there. And the reason for that was because of the large amount of undecideds that truly weren't undecided voters. Based off the polls we're given currently, people lied about voting for Joe Biden, or they just had a sudden change on election day. For them to have said that they support Joe Biden and then ended up voting against him, or maybe just didn't vote altogether, that boosted Donald Trump's margin in the state. Donald Trump won in 2016 in the state of Florida, not by a majority. In 2020, he did win by a majority. So in 2016, you could have made the argument there were more votes against Trump than there were for him, but you couldn't make that in 2020. And then again, that is also a disingenuous argument, because who's to say that those libertarian voters wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump in 2016? But point being that the polls in Florida underestimate Republican support, which brings me to my next point. Not only does it show that Marco Rubio probably has a higher approval rating in the state of Florida, but that the polling data so far, which shows Marco Rubio ahead by 20 points, might be the estimate that could be nearly accurate. Now, I don't think Rubio is going to win by 20 percentage points, but what we've seen historically speaking is that polling data in the state of Florida doesn't always accurately represent the true amount of support that Marco Rubio has, that Republicans have received in the state. In this position that Rubio is in, this rating by Cook Political Report, Sabato's crystal ball, likely Republican. I don't all agree with that battleground state, scenario. I already told you I rate it as a likely Republican state, but it certainly could move over into being safe, and you can understand exactly how. Looking at Miami-Dade County, that is a very large county. Just look at the amount of voters there, even in 2016, on the Senate ballot, which receives less votes than the presidential one. The total number of votes here total up to around 1 million, but then in 2020, over 1 million. This is one of the most populous counties in the state of Florida. In fact, I think that Broward County probably rivaling it there, not Palm Beach. Orange County, maybe not really. Looking at that region of the state, it seems that either Broward County or Miami-Dade County hold the largest of the state's population. And that's why, this state certainly is geared around Miami-Dade, Broward, Tampa area, Orlando area, Jacksonville, because these are the major cities. The rest of the state is red, but depending on the margins in these states, that's what ultimately is driving Florida to the left. But if the left no longer wins in Miami-Dade like they used to, then it starts to get worrisome. And it's not just me that's saying Florida has this type of shift from 2016 to 2020. It's also the Cook PVI, which essentially is the partisan voting index, which reverts all of the states back to ground zero on the popular vote and then explains how they would lean relative to that. So on this map, based if the American popular vote was around 0-0, meaning that there was equal support for Republicans, equal support for Democrats, Florida would lean towards the right. And I think anyone could have told you that. But again, it's not just me saying this or trying to build this argument that Rubio is in inherently a Republican state. While Florida does have competitive races, think about the last time there was a notable statewide Democratic victory. That was 2012 when Barack Obama won the state and Bill Nelson won the state. After then, minuscule victories for Democrats on the statewide level, nothing of major importance. I think at most they have the Commission of Agriculture or Agricultural Commissioner, but other than that, they don't have the governor position, they don't have lieutenant governor position, they don't have the Senate position, either of them, they don't have majority seats in the House of Representatives from the state of Florida, they haven't won on the presidential level since Obama's re-election. I mean, what's happening in Florida is that, yes, it is a swing state, but does lean towards the right. And the Cook Partisan Voting Index only confirms exactly what I've been trying to say. So, Marco Rubio at this point in time, is this race considered to be safe? I would not personally rate it as that, but if it was to move over to the safe column, or if I was to move it over there in the next couple of months, based off of more consistent data coming out supporting exactly what I'm telling you today, then yes. I would not be surprised, though. I mean, Florida is a state that has been very tricky for Democrats, and the Florida Democratic Party really hasn't had much luck in terms of fielding strong candidates, in terms of having great election results, in terms of spending their money on the right ads, in terms of reaching out to the communities that they need to, specifically underrepresented, communities of color, just economically disadvantaged communities, whatever it might be. The Florida Democratic Party doesn't seem to be doing as good of a job as the Florida Republican Party is. And the fact that the Florida Republican Party really resorted to in-person tactics in the 2020 election when the Democratic Party did not, they actually ended up back with that fundraising advantage in the state of Florida. Not fundraising, voter registration advantage that they previously did not have. So what I see in Florida is really just a combination of bad things on the Democratic Party side, combined with Marco Rubio being such a popular senator and being someone who is in such a powerful position, to a point where even people who may not necessarily like him, because his approval rating was certainly not, up 8 points in 2016, but it was enough to say in Florida that as someone who is popular, as someone who even holds a 1-2 point advantage, as a Republican at least, that is when you are on track to win the election. Because the bar in the state of Florida is set much higher for Democrats than it is Republicans, because the state of Florida has an inherent Republican lean, and people need to understand that. So for 2022, despite Val Demings, I think probably one of the strongest Democratic candidates we've seen on this declared list, she still probably won't win this race. Florida is Florida. Yes, it typically is competitive, but I don't see it happening this cycle. Unless Marco Rubio really screws up, Marco Rubio will be on track to win re-election in the state of Florida, potentially by a larger amount than 10 points. We don't know yet. We have yet to see more data to be released. All we know so far is that 20-point victory poll for Marco Rubio. I wouldn't say that's exactly where I expect it to be right now, but again, everything is up to the Florida electorate. Everything is up to Marco Rubio and Val Demings as to how this race continues. We've seen that these fundraising numbers seem to be about even. Marco Rubio, Val Demings raising roughly the same amount. The thing is, all Rubio has to do is win. This is his race to lose. There's room to fall, a lot of room to fall, which means that these fundraising numbers for Demings might end up being wasted on this race. But then again, who am I to say that focusing on a race, I don't think that it's wrong for the Democrats to focus on it. I think they absolutely should, but I am going to say that a lot of these efforts will be in vain, but we don't know which ones yet. 2022 in Florida might pay off, but right now it doesn't look like it's going to. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.